MobTube Credibility Insurance. Did you spend 20 years keeping your mouth shut, only to discover everybody else got a podcast first? Are people questioning your mob credentials? Do critics keep asking annoying little questions like, where are the court records? Who can verify this? And why does every murder confession somehow have a sponsor? Then you need MobTube Credibility Insurance. At MobTube Credibility Insurance, we protect former associates, alleged enforcers, government cooperators, neighborhood bookies, and guys who once stood near a social club from the devastating financial consequences of fact-checking. For one affordable monthly payment, our experts will transform your confusing criminal history into a powerful online brand. Were you a low-level gambling associate? Congratulations. You were a criminal strategist. Did you collect a few debts? You were an elite mafia enforcer. Did somebody beat the living hell out of you? You survived an underworld assassination attempt. Did you cooperate after facing 30 years in prison? You made a strategic moral transition. And did you once drive a guy named Tony to the airport? Perfect. You were deep inside the administration. Every policy includes our exclusive podcast host protection package. Your interviewer will nod seriously, interrupt nothing, and react to every story with carefully selected phrases such as, "That is unbelievable. You were really in deep. And nobody has ever heard this before." Even when 4 other channels uploaded the exact same story yesterday. Concerned about documentation? Don't be. Our patented source multiplication technology turns one claim into unlimited internet evidence. First, you tell the story. Then a podcast repeats it. Then another channel reacts to the podcast. Then an article reports on the reaction video. Congratulations. You now have 4 independent sources, at least until somebody actually reads them. Upgrade to our Hitman Premium plan, and we will add the word Hitman to your biography, regardless of whether any court, prosecutor, witness, victim, or functioning adult has ever used it. You'll also receive a black and red thumbnail, artificial cigar smoke, a suspiciously expensive chain, a dramatic photo of John Gotti, and one completely unrelated image of a revolver. Because nothing says historical accuracy like a gun floating behind your head. MobTube Credibility Insurance also protects against common online emergencies, including contradictions between interviews, names you suddenly cannot remember, murders nobody can locate, stories that improve every time you tell them, and critics who possess the dangerous combination of free time and pacer access. Act today and receive our government cooperator rebranding kit absolutely free. Stop saying I informed to reduce my sentence. Start saying I chose a different path. Stop saying they arrested me. Say the government recognized my value. Stop saying I entered witness protection. Say I expanded into a new market. MobTube Credibility Insurance. Because the life may be over, but the algorithm still needs content. Call today. Operators are standing by. Several of them may be recording the conversation for their own channels. MobTube Credibility Insurance is not responsible for indictments, cross-examination, federal documents, eyewitnesses, basic arithmetic, or anyone asking what crew you were actually with. MobTube Credibility Insurance. When the paperwork is thin, make the thumbnail thicker. Disclaimer. This documentary discusses organized crime, violence, extortion, government cooperation, alleged murder, and the strange modern tradition of retired criminals discovering microphones. Some claims discussed in this program come directly from James "Jimmy Eazy" Saracco's own interviews and public appearances. That does not automatically make them false. It also does not make them verified. A man telling the same story on 12 podcasts is still one source. This program does not declare Saracco guilty of any uncharged crime, nor does it treat every dramatic story told beneath studio lighting as established historical fact. We examine the available public record, reported history, Saracco's own statements, and the contradictions between documented reality and personal mythology. Because organized crime may demand silence, but MobTube apparently demands a weekly upload schedule. Now let's get into it.
Analyzing evil. Jimmy Eazy Saracco. The mob associate, the informant, and the hitman story. A Pizzaverse Studios documentary. A Palermo Productions original. Written by Bambi Palermo. Narrated by Vincent DiPrio. For decades, the mafia survived by controlling its own story. Members were expected to remain silent. Associates understood that public attention was dangerous. Government cooperators often disappeared into new identities, leaving their old lives buried beneath sealed records, whispered accusations, and half-remembered street legends. Then the internet arrived. Suddenly, silence became content. Former gangsters became broadcasters. Cooperators became commentators. Prison stories became subscription packages. And men once taught never to discuss the life began telling everything into cameras. One of the newest voices to emerge from that world belongs to James Saracco, better known as Jimmy Eazy. Today, Saracco presents himself as a former mafia associate, enforcer, government informant, and deadly participant in the violent world surrounding the De Cavalcanti crime family. His interviews contain stories of gambling, loan sharking, vicious beatings, murder, betrayal, witness protection, and conflict with some of the most recognizable names in American organized crime. He does not describe himself as a distant observer. He describes himself as a man who lived inside the violence. Some pieces of his history appear to be supported by reporting that existed long before his current media campaign. His nickname appeared in organized crime reporting more than 20 years ago. His alleged connection to the De Cavalcanti organization was reported. His conflict with John Gotti Jr.'s circle was reported. His cooperation with the FBI was also reported. But the most sensational portions of his new story are far more difficult to confirm. Was Jimmy Eazy truly a feared mafia hitman? Was he an associate whose violent reputation grew with every retelling? Or are we watching a real criminal past being expanded into a more profitable legend? This is not simply the story of one alleged mobster. It is the story of memory, violence, ego, cooperation, and the modern business of selling the past. This is Analyzing Evil. The man behind the nickname. In the world of organized crime, a nickname can become more durable than a legal identity. Nicknames turn ordinary men into characters. A man named James becomes Jimmy Eazy. A neighborhood bookmaker becomes a gangster. An associate becomes an enforcer. An enforcer becomes a killer. Eventually, the nickname carries a reputation that may be larger than the man himself. Public reporting from 2004 identified James "Jimmy Eazy" Saracco as a mafia associate connected to the De Cavalcante organization. The De Cavalcante family operated primarily in northern New Jersey, with additional interests and relationships extending into New York. The organization became widely known outside law enforcement circles because of its supposed influence on the fictional crime family portrayed in The Sopranos. But the real De Cavalcante family was not television. It was an organized criminal network involved in gambling, loan sharking, extortion, labor racketeering, fraud, robbery, and murder. Saracco was reportedly active in gambling and loan sharking operations around Howard Beach and Ozone Park in Queens. He was not publicly described as the boss of a criminal empire. He was identified as an associate operating within a dangerous ecosystem of crews, captains, made members, debtors, bookmakers, and violent intermediaries. That distinction matters. A mafia associate is not necessarily a formally inducted member. Associates may earn money alongside the organization, perform criminal services, collect debts, provide information, or participate in violence. Some remain on the edges. Others become deeply embedded. Their survival depends upon usefulness, relationships, fear, and the ability to recognize which man owns which street. According to the older account, Saracco eventually encountered a problem that has ruined many men in organized crime: territory. The mafia may wrap itself in ceremony, tradition, and family language underneath the rituals. However, it remains a business built upon control. Gambling customers are money. Loans are money. Neighborhoods are money. And money attracts men who believe they are entitled to take it. The Gotti conflict. Saracco's most historically reported story involves an alleged dispute with John Gotti Jr. and members of the Gambino crime family. The conflict reportedly centered on gambling and loan sharking operations in areas considered part of the Gambino family's territory. According to the 2004 report, Saracco resisted pressure to move those operations. That decision allegedly placed him directly against Gotti Jr.'s circle. In the legitimate world, competing businesses may negotiate. They may file lawsuits. They may change prices or advertise more aggressively. In organized crime, competition can be resolved with fists, guns, intimidation, or disappearance. Informants reportedly told the FBI that an effort was made to kill Saracco. When that effort failed, members of Gotti's circle allegedly caught him on Cross Bay Boulevard and beat him almost to death. The beating is central to the Jimmy Eazy story because it transforms him from an alleged criminal participant into both aggressor and victim. He may have helped operate within a violent system, but that same system eventually turned its violence against him. This is one of organized crime's oldest contradictions. Every participant believes violence can be controlled. Violence will only be used against enemies. Violence will protect the business. Violence will enforce respect. Violence will maintain order. But violence does not remain obedient. The weapon used to intimidate one debtor can eventually be placed against the man who carried it. The crew that attacks one enemy today may attack an ally tomorrow. The mafia promises protection while creating the danger from which protection is needed. Saracco's alleged refusal to surrender territory may be presented as courage. It may also have been pride. In criminal organizations, pride is rarely harmless. A legitimate businessman can afford to walk away from an insult. A gangster who walks away fears losing reputation. Once reputation becomes more valuable than safety, escalation becomes almost inevitable. No one wants to appear weak, so everyone becomes vulnerable. The psychology of the enforcer. Jimmy "Eazy" Saracco now speaks publicly about violence with the authority of a man who claims to have lived inside it. In recent interviews, he has described beatings, intimidation, criminal enforcement, and alleged murder. He presents violence not as something he merely witnessed, but as a tool he says he personally used. Those are extraordinary claims. And extraordinary claims need more than a microphone, a dramatic thumbnail, and a host nodding like he just heard the recipe for Sunday gravy. A confession made during an interview is not the same as a conviction, a court record, or independently verified evidence. It may be true. It may be exaggerated. It may omit key details. Or it may be a story reshaped over decades until memory and performance become impossible to separate. Human memory is not a security camera. It changes. It reorganizes events. It protects the ego. It softens guilt. And when an audience rewards the most dramatic version of a story, memory can slowly become theater. That does not mean Saracco invented his entire past. There is evidence that a man known as Jimmy "Eazy" operated within the world of organized crime. The deeper question is what violence did to his identity. An enforcer earns status through fear. He may not control the money. He may not run the family. He may not sit at the top of the organization. But if people believe he is willing to hurt them, his reputation becomes a form of currency. A debtor pays because he imagines what may happen if he refuses. A witness stays silent because the threat feels real. An associate follows orders because uncertainty is often more frightening than violence itself. In that world, the most effective enforcer may not be the man who commits the most violence. It may be the man whose reputation makes violence unnecessary. But reputation becomes a prison. Once a man is known as dangerous, he must continue performing danger. If he hesitates, the legend weakens. If the legend weakens, his usefulness disappears. The performance becomes mandatory. Years later, when the street corners are gone and the crews have scattered, the performance may continue in front of a different audience. The back room becomes a podcast studio. Fear becomes fascination. And the old reputation becomes a brand. Jimmy "Eazy" may have spent years building a name that made people afraid. Now he appears to be using that same name to make people listen. The weapon changed. The psychology did not. The devil in the details. A good story can survive on confidence. The truth usually needs paperwork. That is where Jimmy "Eazy's public narrative becomes harder to evaluate. There are several types of evidence that could confirm or challenge his most dramatic claims. Indictments. Trial transcripts. Sentencing memoranda. Cooperation agreements. FBI reports. Prosecutor statements. Contemporaneous news coverage. Corroborating witnesses. victim records, unsolved homicide files. Without those materials, the audience is left mostly with Saracco's own account and interviews built around it. That creates an evidentiary loop. Jimmy tells a story. A podcast presents it as a revelation. Another channel reports what Jimmy said on the first podcast. Then the claim begins appearing in search results, as though several independent sources have confirmed it. But repetition is not corroboration. 10 interviews with the same man do not create 10 witnesses. They create 10 recordings of one witness. Saracco's older reported history gives his story a genuine foundation. He appears to have been known as Jimmy Eazy. He was reported as an associate connected to the De Cavalcante crime family. His involvement in gambling, loan sharking, conflict with John Gotti Jr.'s circle, and eventual cooperation were discussed long before his current media appearances. That matters. But a real foundation does not automatically support every flaw added later. A man can be a genuine mafia associate without being a formally inducted member. He can participate in violence without being a professional killer. He can know dangerous people without sitting at the center of every major event. And he can tell the truth about part of his past while exaggerating another part. That is why language matters. Reported. Alleged. Claimed. Charged. Convicted. Corroborated. These words are not decorations lawyers scatter around because they enjoy ruining dramatic narration. They separate fact from accusation. They protect victims. They protect the subject. And most importantly, they protect the audience from being sold certainty where none exists. The mafia understood the value of ambiguity. A feared associate might allow people to believe he was made. A collector might allow debtors to think he had killed before. A soldier might imply he spoke directly for the boss. The uncertainty did the work. People obeyed because they did not know where the reputation ended and reality began. Modern crime entertainment can reward the same strategy. The less documentation available, the more room exists for legend. And legend is often easier to market than an ordinary criminal career. Former associate discusses gambling operations sounds like a deposition. Former mafia hitman tells all sounds like a thumbnail. One describes, the other sells. The question is not whether Jimmy Eazy has a real criminal past. The evidence suggests that he does. The question is how much of the modern hitman identity is history, and how much is branding. Becoming an informant. At some point, Jimmy Eazy's relationship with law enforcement changed. The man who had reportedly operated inside the criminal world became a source against it. Older reporting identified James Saracco as an FBI informant who was expected to provide information connected to John Gotti Jr. and others. According to that reporting, his cooperation followed his own arrest and the possibility of serious prison time. That detail matters. Because people rarely cooperate for one simple reason. Fear may play a role. Prison may play a role. Revenge may play a role. Survival may play a role. Sometimes all four sit at the same table. The mafia treats cooperation as the ultimate betrayal. A man may extort businesses, beat debtors, destroy families, and participate in violence while still being described as loyal. But the moment he speaks to the government, he becomes a rat. That moral code is awfully convenient. It does not condemn the crimes. It condemns the disclosure of the crimes. The rule protects the organization, not the public. It allows powerful criminals to demand lifelong silence from men they would sacrifice without hesitation. Saracco's decision to cooperate may have helped him avoid a longer sentence. It may have protected him from enemies. It may have given investigators useful information. It may also have allowed him to settle old scores. Those possibilities can exist at the same time. A government witness can tell the truth while protecting himself. He can expose dangerous people while minimizing his own responsibility. He can help prosecutors while benefiting from the agreement. Cooperation does not transform a criminal into a hero. But it does not automatically make every statement false either. The only responsible method is to examine each claim individually. Was the information corroborated? Did it lead investigators to evidence? Was it used in court? Did prosecutors consider it reliable? Was the witness challenged under cross-examination? What benefit did he receive? What did he leave out? These questions matter more than the childish argument over whether someone is a stand-up guy or a rat. The mafia's language turns accountability into weakness. It suggests that silence after violence is honorable. It is not. Silence protects the organization. Truth threatens it. But truth told under pressure is still complicated. Saracco may have spoken because he was frightened. He may have spoken because he was angry. He may have spoken because prison finally made loyalty less attractive. Whatever the reason, cooperation changed his identity forever. He was no longer simply Jimmy Eazy, the alleged associate with a reputation for violence. He became Jimmy Eazy, the government informant. And in the world he came from, that label can be more dangerous than any indictment. The new name and the old identity. After cooperation, Jimmy Eazy's life reportedly changed in ways that went far beyond courtrooms and interviews. He has also appeared publicly under another name, Zach Caruso. That name has been connected to his alleged life after cooperation and witness protection. A new identity can hide a man from enemies. It cannot erase the man he used to be. Witness protection can provide new documents, a new location, and a new version of the future. But the past does not vanish because the paperwork changes. The old neighborhood still exists. The people harmed still exist. The betrayals still exist. The fear of discovery still exists. For some cooperators, anonymity becomes a second prison. They survive physically, but lose the identity that once gave them status. They cannot explain where they came from. They cannot openly discuss what they did. They cannot tell new people why certain names, places, or memories still make them nervous. Then social media offers a dangerous bargain. Tell the story. Recover the nickname. Take control of the narrative. Become visible again. For a man once known through fear, obscurity may feel worse than punishment. Public storytelling restores significance. Interviewers ask about powerful men. Viewers argue about old crimes. The nickname returns. The legend breathes again. And the man who disappeared behind a new name becomes Jimmy Eazy once more. But visibility comes with a price. Enemies may notice. Victims may respond. Researchers like myself may examine the record. Contradictions may surface. A man cannot ask the public to recognize him while demanding that the public never question him. Once the story becomes content, the receipts become part of the transaction. Jimmy Eazy's return to public life may be about confession. It may be about money. It may be about ego. It may be about reclaiming control over a life once controlled by criminals, prosecutors, and protection programs. Most likely, it is some combination of all of them. Because changing a name can protect a body, it cannot silence an identity. And sometimes the loudest return belongs to the man who spent years being told he had to disappear. The hitman identity. The word hitman carries enormous cultural power. It suggests discipline, secrecy, professional violence, access to powerful men. It turns murder into a job title. And that is exactly why the word sells. Former gambling associate discusses loan sharking disputes. Sounds like paperwork somebody left beside a cold cup of coffee. Former mafia hitman tells all sounds like a thumbnail people click before they even finish reading it. Jimmy Eazy's modern public image leans heavily on that label. In interviews, promotional material, and online appearances, the word hitman follows him like a shadow. It promises danger. It promises secrets. It promises that the audience is about to hear something forbidden. But the label creates a serious problem. Because murder is not branding. A victim is not an assignment. A grieving family is not background scenery. A killing is not a colorful anecdote meant to make an interview more exciting. If Saracco's murder claims are true, then the story is not primarily about how feared he was. It is about the people who died. It is about families who received phone calls that changed their lives forever. Children who lost parents. Parents who buried children. People who spent years wondering why someone they loved never came home. That suffering should never become decoration for another man's legend. But if the claims are exaggerated, the moral problem becomes different. Then real mafia violence is being borrowed to strengthen a persona. The dead become props. Fear becomes marketing. And the audience is invited to admire a reputation that may be larger than the record. Either possibility demands scrutiny. The hitman identity also changes how the speaker tells his own story. A bookmaker can admit uncertainty. An associate can admit he was frightened. A collector can admit he followed stronger men. But a hitman is expected to appear calm, controlled, fearless, always ready. Once a man accepts that label publicly, he may feel pressure to perform it. Every interview must contain a more dangerous story. Every memory must prove he belonged near the center of the action. Every rival must appear more powerful, because defeating powerful enemies makes the storyteller appear stronger. The identity begins shaping the testimony. And eventually, the audience may no longer know where the man ends and the character begins. This does not mean Jimmy Eazy is lying. It means the title itself creates an incentive to simplify a complicated life. Real organized crime is rarely cinematic. It is repetitive, paranoid, greedy, and often pathetic. Men fight over gambling customers. They threaten people over debt. They betray friends to shorten sentences. They spend years pretending fear is respect. The hitman label hides that ugliness beneath a layer of dark glamour. It makes violence seem specialized, almost professional. But murder committed for money, ego, or criminal loyalty is not professionalism. It is homicide with better public relations. Jimmy Eazy may have committed terrible acts. He may have witnessed them. He may have been close enough to understand the world that produced them. But until the most serious claims are independently confirmed, the hitman identity remains exactly that. An identity. Not yet a verdict. Evil as a system. To examine Jimmy Eazy only as an individual would miss the larger machinery around him. The mafia is not dangerous merely because some of its members are violent. It is dangerous because it turns violence into a system, a business model, a management strategy with funerals. The organization converts fear into money. It makes cruelty useful. It allows each participant to perform one small part of a much larger crime while pretending the full responsibility belongs to somebody else. The bookmaker does not see a family losing rent money. He sees an unpaid balance. The loan shark does not see desperation. He sees interest. The collector does not see terror. He sees disrespect. The man giving the order does not see a body. He sees a problem being solved. And the man carrying out the violence tells himself he was only following instructions. Responsibility becomes divided into pieces. One man provides the address. Another supplies the weapon. Another drives the car. Another gives permission. Another cleans up afterward. Each participant performs a task. Together, they destroy a life. That is how evil becomes ordinary. Not through monsters hiding in the shadows. Through men treating human suffering like paperwork. Organized crime thrives on compartmentalization. The boss says he never touched anyone. The shooter says he did not choose the victim. The associate says he was never formally inducted. The informant says everyone else was worse. Everybody has an explanation. Nobody wants the bill. Jimmy Eazy's story exists inside that structure. Whether every detail of his modern account is accurate or not, he describes a world where violence was accepted as a legitimate answer to financial disputes, wounded pride, and criminal competition. The psychology behind it is not complicated. Entitlement. Fear. Greed. Ego. The organization believes it deserves the money. The individual believes he deserves respect. Anyone who interferes becomes disposable. That is not honor. It is criminal narcissism wearing a suit and demanding to be called tradition. The mafia's greatest trick was convincing people that its violence came from loyalty. Most of it came from business. Money was owed. Territory was challenged. Someone spoke too freely. Someone embarrassed the wrong man. The language of family and respect made ordinary greed sound sacred. But remove the nicknames, rituals, and Sunday dinners, and the truth becomes uglier. A group of men used fear to take what did not belong to them. They hurt people who could not fight back. Then they called themselves honorable because they stayed loyal to one another while doing it. Saracco may have been an enforcer within that system. He may have been a victim of it. He may have later helped dismantle parts of it. Those roles can overlap, but none of them erase the central reality. The myth of the stand-up guy. Organized crime has always loved the phrase stand-up guy. It sounds noble, dependable, old school. The kind of man who keeps his mouth shut, takes his sentence, and never betrays the people around him. But strip away the mythology and ask the obvious question: stand up for what? Silence after murder, loyalty to extortionists, protection for men who terrorized civilians. The mafia's definition of honor is often upside down. A man may beat people, destroy families, steal livelihoods, and participate in violence while still being called loyal. But if he tells the government what happened, suddenly he becomes the lowest creature in the room. That moral code is not about honor. It is about insulation. It protects the organization from consequences. It keeps witnesses quiet. It rewards obedience and punishes accountability. That is why cooperators such as Jimmy Eazy are judged so harshly inside the mob world. Not necessarily because everything they say is false. Because speaking threatens the structure. Saracco's cooperation does not erase whatever crimes he may have committed. But refusing to cooperate would not have made those crimes noble either. Silence is not redemption. Prison time is not automatically courage. And loyalty to violent men is not a virtue just because somebody says it with an Italian accent and a cigar in his hand. Jimmy Eazy's public story contains several identities that do not fit neatly together. The alleged enforcer, the survivor, the victim of a brutal beating, the suspected killer, the government informant, the remorseful older man, the media personality. Each identity may contain part of the truth. People are rarely consistent. A violent man can feel fear. A criminal can become a victim. An informant can tell the truth. A witness can exaggerate. A person can regret the past and still enjoy the attention it brings. Contradiction does not automatically destroy credibility, but it does require examination. The myth of the stand-up guy survives because it offers a simple moral picture. The loyal criminal is honorable. The cooperator is dishonorable. Reality is uglier. A loyal criminal may protect murderers. A cooperator may expose them. A cooperator may also lie, minimize his role, or trade information for survival. There are no clean heroes in that equation. Only choices. And consequences. Jimmy Eazy may have broken the rules of the world he once served. But those rules were designed to protect the people doing the most damage. Breaking them may have been self-preservation. It may have been revenge. It may have been the first honest thing he ever did. Or just the smartest deal available. Either way, the phrase stand-up guy deserves less worship. Sometimes the man who stays silent is not brave. He is simply still protecting the racket. Memory, ego, and performance. Years after an event, memory stops behaving like a clean record. It becomes a story. People do not remember themselves only as they were. They remember themselves as they need to have been. A frightened young associate may later remember himself as fearless. A reckless decision may become a calculated move. A humiliating defeat may become proof that he was dangerous enough to survive. A small role may slowly move closer to the center of the story. That does not always mean deliberate lying. Human memory is slippery. It removes confusion. It fills gaps. It creates motives after the fact. And it usually gives the person remembering a better part than reality did. Public interviews intensify that process. The host asks for the most dangerous man, the bloodiest moment, the biggest secret, the confrontation with the famous boss. Nobody asks about the long afternoons, the petty arguments, the bad decisions, or the hours spent waiting around for somebody else to make a move. The ordinary details disappear. The dramatic moments survive. Soon, the interview circuit begins shaping the story it claims to preserve. The guest learns which stories get clipped, which names attract viewers, which claims become titles, which moments cause the host to lean forward and whisper, "No way." Every appearance rewards the version of the past with the most danger. That creates pressure. The next story has to be bigger. The next rival has to be more powerful. The next confession has to be darker. Eventually, the line between memory and performance becomes hard to see. Jimmy Eazy's public persona may contain genuine history. It may also contain the natural inflation common to criminal memoirs. The problem is not unique to him. Former gangsters often compete in an economy of relevance. One man knew a boss. Another says he worked directly for him. One man witnessed violence. Another says he ordered it. One man carried a message. Another remembers himself as the only person in the room who understood what was really happening. The past becomes a stage where everyone somehow stood closest to the center. Ego has always been part of organized crime. Men fought over respect because respect was a substitute for security. They exaggerated connections because proximity to power created protection. They cultivated fear because fear prevented challenges. The same instincts can survive long after the criminal organization is gone. Only the audience changes. Instead of impressing men in a social club, the storyteller impresses strangers online. Instead of earning street credibility, he earns views. The performance becomes cleaner. The consequences become distant. And the mythology becomes easier to maintain. This does not prove Jimmy Eazy is fabricating his story. It means his claims should be tested against evidence rather than accepted because they are entertaining. The question is not whether he tells the story well. The question is whether the story survives without him telling it. Because memory can be sincere and still be wrong. Ego can be wounded and still be convincing. And performance can feel exactly like truth when the audience wants the legend badly enough. Real mobster or created character? Was Jimmy Eazy real? The available record suggests that James Saracco was known by that nickname and operated within the organized crime world. Was he connected to the De Cavalcante family? Older reporting says yes. Was he involved in gambling and loan sharking? That was also reported. Was he targeted and severely beaten during a dispute involving John Gotti Jr.'s circle? Again, that story appeared in reporting long before his current YouTube presence. Did he later cooperate with the government? Yes, that too appears in the older public record. Those details matter. They separate Jimmy Eazy from the obvious Mob 2 pretenders who build entire criminal careers from movie quotes, dark sunglasses, and one suspiciously clean tracksuit. There is a real foundation beneath the name. But a real foundation does not automatically prove every story built on top of it. The harder questions concern scale. How important was he? How much violence did he personally commit? Was he trusted by powerful members of the organization? Or was he one of many associates operating on the edges, close enough to danger to understand it, but not close enough to control it? Were his alleged killings documented? Did investigators corroborate them? Were victims identified? Did prosecutors ever place those claims into court records? Did his cooperation produce evidence that independently confirmed his version of events? Until those questions are answered, the responsible conclusion must remain limited. Jimmy Eazy does not appear to be an entirely fabricated character. But the public evidence does not automatically establish every part of the hitman mythology now attached to him. The truth may exist somewhere between dismissal and celebration. He may have been a genuine associate involved in serious criminal activity who later enlarged parts of his story. He may possess information that has never been made public. He may be telling the truth about some violent acts while misremembering, combining, or reshaping others. He may be both authentic and unreliable. Those two things are not opposites. A real criminal past does not guarantee perfect honesty. In fact, the habits required to survive organized crime often include deception, selective memory, intimidation, and self-protection. Those habits do not vanish because a man sits down for an interview. The challenge is resisting the easiest conclusions. Believing everything because the storyteller sounds convincing is foolish. Rejecting everything because he became an informant is just as foolish. The record must be examined claim by claim. The mob associate appears real. The informant appears documented. The hitman identity remains under investigation. And that uncertainty may be the most honest verdict available. Because in organized crime, reputation often grows in the shadows. On the internet, it grows in the upload schedule. The business of confession. America has always loved a reformed outlaw. First, the criminal commits terrible acts. Then he survives. Then he tells the story. And eventually, somebody puts a microphone in front of him and adds advertisements. The past becomes content. The violence becomes a brand. The confession becomes a business. That does not mean former criminals should remain silent forever. Their testimony can reveal how organized crime really operates. They can explain structures outsiders never saw. They can expose names, methods, betrayals, and hidden relationships. Their stories can help dismantle the mythology. But confession becomes dangerous when accountability is replaced by performance. The more violent the past, the more valuable the story becomes. The more shocking the claim, the more attention it attracts. That creates an ugly incentive. A man may profit from describing acts that devastated other families. The audience may hear remorse. But remorse is not measured only by tone of voice. It is measured by responsibility. Does the storyteller correct exaggerations that make him appear more powerful? Does he acknowledge victims as people rather than plot points? Does he admit what he gained? Does he accept what he destroyed? Does he tell the truth when the truth makes him look smaller? Those questions matter. Because an apology delivered between sponsor messages is not automatically redemption. A confession can be sincere. It can also be strategic. It may repair reputation. It may generate income. It may settle old scores. It may allow the speaker to control the story before someone else tells it first. Jimmy Eazy's public appearances place him inside a growing industry built around former mobsters, cooperators, alleged enforcers, and men claiming access to hidden criminal history. Some offer valuable insight. Some recycle stories. Some inflate their importance. Some appear to discover a new homicide every time the algorithm gets hungry. The audience has a responsibility too. Viewers reward sensational claims. They click the bloodiest title. They share the most dramatic clip. They often prefer certainty over nuance. That pressure shapes the market. And eventually, the market shapes the memories. A former criminal who says, "I was around some dangerous people and made terrible choices," may receive modest attention. A man who says, "I was the most feared killer in the room," receives a series. That imbalance matters. It can turn testimony into competition. Every guest must appear tougher, closer to the boss, more violent, more important. The truth becomes less profitable than the legend. That is why access should never replace skepticism. A microphone is not absolution. A documentary appearance is not restitution. A viral confession is not corroboration. Jimmy Eazy may be telling truths the public has never heard. He may also be selling the most dramatic version of himself. The only way to know the difference is to demand evidence. Because when confession becomes commerce, guilt can start looking suspiciously like marketing. The final verdict. James "Jimmy Eazy" Saracco appears to have a genuine history within the world of organized crime. His name, nickname, reported De Cavalcante association, conflict with John Gotti Jr.'s circle, and cooperation with the government were discussed long before his current rise through online mafia media. That matters. It separates him from the obvious pretenders who build an underworld resume from movie quotes, sunglasses, and a folding chair in somebody's garage. Hitman label changes the moral and historical stakes. If the claim is true, then victims deserve to be identified and remembered. If the claim is exaggerated, then real violence is being used to decorate a persona. Either way, the story cannot be treated casually. So the verdict must remain divided. The mob associate appears real. The informant appears documented. The hitman legend remains under examination. Jimmy Eazy may know where bodies are buried. He may know only part of the truth. Or he may have discovered that the most marketable version of his past is the one covered in the most blood. Until stronger evidence emerges, certainty would be dishonest. And perhaps that is the most revealing part of his story. In the mafia, reputation kept men alive. On the internet, reputation keeps them relevant. The crews may disappear. The old bosses may die. The social clubs may close. But the need to be feared, remembered, and believed can survive everything. Even witness protection. If the claim is exaggerated, then real violence is being used to decorate a persona. Either way, the story cannot be treated casually. So the verdict must remain divided. The mob associate appears real. The informant appears documented. The hitman legend remains under examination. Jimmy Eazy may know where bodies are buried. He may know only part of the truth. Or he may have discovered that the most marketable version of his past is the one covered in the most blood. Until stronger evidence emerges, certainty would be dishonest. And perhaps that is the most revealing part of his story. In the Mafia, reputation kept men alive. On the internet, reputation keeps them relevant. The crews may disappear. The old bosses may die. The social clubs may close. But the need to be feared, remembered, and believed can survive everything. Even witness protection. Jimmy Eazy's story leaves us with one uncomfortable question. What happens when a violent past becomes entertainment? Do these confessions expose organized crime? Or do they build fresh legends around the same men who helped create the damage? The answer depends on how the story is told. Without scrutiny, criminal testimony becomes mythology. Without victims, it becomes glamorization. Without evidence, it becomes advertising with a body count. Organized crime should be studied. Its participants should be questioned. Its secrets should be dragged into the light. But no man should be allowed to turn accusation into fact simply because he tells the story confidently enough. The truth deserves more than a nickname. It deserves documentation. This has been Analyzing Evil. For more documentaries investigating organized crime, corruption, history, psychological manipulation, and the people hiding behind carefully manufactured legends, subscribe to Bambi Palermo and the Pizzaverse. Here we do not kneel before reputations. We do not confuse storytelling with evidence. And we definitely do not hand out honorary caporegime titles because somebody bought a microphone and remembers 3 Italian words. We examine the record. We challenge the mythology. And when the truth is buried beneath 20 years of street stories, podcast clips, and self-promotion, we bring a shovel. Thank you for watching. Your support allows Pizzaverse Studios and Palermo Productions to continue producing independent documentaries that examine history without polishing the villains or forgetting the victims. Please like the video, share it, and tell us in the comments what you believe. Is Jimmy Eazy a credible former Mafia insider finally revealing the truth? A real associate exaggerating his position? Or a complicated figure caught somewhere between documented history and personal mythology? Until next time, stay skeptical. Because the loudest man in the room may know the most. Or he may simply be standing closest to the microphone.
Hey! Yeah, you! Quit scrolling for a second. Name's Ghost. Official Shiba Inu. Official supervisor of snack inspections. And more importantly, the official mascot of the Pizzaverse. I've watched thousands of humans wander around the internet. Some make noise. Some chase drama. Some think pineapple belongs on pizza. I don't talk to those people. But if you're looking for documentaries that dig deeper, stories that actually make you think, mob history, old Hollywood, dark fairy tales, true crime, psychology, and enough sarcasm to keep everybody awake, then congratulations. You found your people. Bambi Palermo and the Pizzaverse don't just tell stories. We tear them apart. Dust them off. And show you what everybody else missed. So here's your assignment. Hit that subscribe button. Smack the like button. Ring the notification bell before it gets lonely. Join the Pizzaverse. We're building the biggest social club on YouTube. And trust me, you want your seat at the table before the espresso gets cold. I'm Ghost. Good dog. Great taste in YouTube channels. Now go subscribe to Bambi Palermo. Before I start judging your life choices from across the room, see ya in the Pizzaverse.